Hello, this is Broyar, and welcome to a brand new Let's Play series. We are going to be playing the newly released Imperator Rome, which is the new game that just came out from Paradox Studios. And if you're not familiar with them, they're the guys that do Crusader Kings 2, Hearts of Iron 4, Stellaris, Europa Universalis, all those types of games. So a lot of really good, awesome grand strategy games coming from them. And this is the newest one. This is, I guess, if you were going to play through the whole history, this one would come first now, before Crusader Kings. Technically, it actually is. I mean, it doesn't show the 304 BCE on here because obviously that would not make sense. Because how can you be before something if it hasn't happened yet? But effectively, this is you know, as you would know it, 304 BCE, whatever. So, you know, pretty far back there into the history, well before the CK2 stuff. I'm pretty sure, I don't actually know what the end date for this game is, but I'm pretty sure it's well before you get to the CK2. So there's a little bit of a gap there. Who knows? Maybe someday they'll add some DLC to expand it out further, or who knows, bring CK2 back even closer so that they get a little bit closer together. But that's beside the point. The point is, we are playing in the Roman era. You know, we got Rome down here, and this is kind of just before they start really exploding and becoming a true empire. And that's kind of going to be the part of the game, is just see how big and how awesome we can be while dealing with some of the political, you know, effects within our country. And just speaking of, you know, kind of what we've got going on here, let me close that out. As you can see, the map is pretty big. I mean, there's a lot of space here. I mean, there's some really huge empires over here on the east. But I mean, if you cut a little bit further west, there's some really tiny ones, and they're all over the place. So there's a lot of different possible countries that you can play as. In order to pick the country that we decided to play as, there's not really a true random functionality on the countries in this game yet. I don't know if that's something they'll add at some point, but I know some of the other Paradox games do have that randomization. So actually what I did was I loaded up CK2 and hit the random there, and just to pick kind of the area we were going to be at, and just pick basically the nation that covered that choice as best as possible. And so that's how we got our decision here, and what we're playing as. And I'll actually go here and click the player one, so you can see where we're at. We're up here, this little green country here, and I'll go back to the political one. We are Semnonia, up here in the kind of Germanic area. A couple interesting things about this. One, we are going to be effectively, if I come up here, pull up the nation overview, we are a, where does it say there? Oh, it's not there. Where's our country or government type? We're tribal. I guess what I'm trying to get at is we're a tribal. So I'm not sure where I can see the actual name, but we're basically a tribal civilization, and nomadic tribe specifically. So we do have some extra options, some interesting features available to us that you might not get if you played as, you know, say Rome or somebody else. My understanding is there's three basic government types. There's the tribes. There's the kind of the elected type of what are they called? Not diplomacy. What am I looking for? The republics, I guess, is what this one is. Basically, the rulers in the republics, like in Rome and stuff like that, they rule for 5 years and they get elected by a senate. And so you have those, and then you have kind of more monarch type things, which I don't know if we have one around that we can pick up. But there's monarchs that, you know, the ruler there will serve their entire lifetime and then typically passed on to one of their children or something like that. Whereas in a tribe, we still also rule for our lifetime, but then when we die, our rule passes on to one of the other tribal lords based on, you know, whoever, you know, got the most approval and things of that nature. So that's going to be an interesting mechanic to see how that plays out. Unlike CK2, I mean, there are still, you know, leaders and people that we play as. Like, we are actually playing as this guy right here, Abram Hildgains, whatever. That is us, but it's not like CK2 in the sense that if we die and somebody else takes over that's not related to us, the game's over. We are still playing as a country, similar to how you would see in EU4. So this game kind of mixes a little bit of the EU4, the CK2, maybe a little bit of Victoria into it with some of the way they manage some of the pops and things like that. So it's kind of a hybrid of a lot of those games. I think the combat works a lot like the EU4, but again, some of these other kind of story elements, maybe it pulls in some of that CK2 stuff. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to play as. What else we got going on for us as our starting country up here? So One maybe big thing that you may notice is that we have this big kind of, I don't know, grayish, tannish. I guess it's gray, right? Like when I zoom in, it kind of gets almost a brownish color, but zoomed out, it's kind of gray. So we have this border here, this area here. And what is this? This is not like no man's land. This up here is no man's land. This is completely impassable terrain. We can't go up here. This is, you know, this Russian area, whatever. You know, eventually Russia, I should say. We can't go up here. But this is down here is different. What this is down here is these are still little cities, and each of these little provinces that you have, these little border areas, is a city. That's what they label it as in here. Whereas in other games, it might be you know, something like a province or maybe even a duchy, maybe in CK2 or something like that. Actually, I think duchy is multiple, isn't it? I think it's just a province, right? Anyway, point is, it's a city here, and then multiple cities make up our, you know, our total nation. Within that nation, though, we do have a couple different. I guess this is within those, the cities make up a province, and then the provinces, you know, kind of combine to make up your nation. So, for example, most of our nation is of the province Semnonia, all except actually we're only missing this bit to have all of Semnonia underneath us, and then we also have this one little bit of Pharaohdenia up here. That is, we have one city within that. So each one of these little things is made up of cities. So that's going to be kind of play into kind of some of the how some of the politics and things like that work. Within the cities, you know, the cities are made up of, you know, different populations. And there's 4 different types of populations. There's slaves, tribesmen, freemen, and citizen. I'm not going to get too far into a lot of these right now. We'll kind of get into these as we go a bit more. But essentially, the slaves are, I mean, kind of as expected. They produce your stuff. You know, they produce a lot of your materials and things like that. So sometimes these materials will hit breakpoints. Like, for example, this grain. For every 15 slaves, we get an extra grain. So, you know, the more slaves you have, the more you're able to work. But they also contribute directly to your base tax, you know, which is obviously your money. Freemen are very much your manpower. You know, that's what your lifeblood of your military, you know, kind of comes off of. Tribesmen are kind of maybe in the middle. They help a little bit with manpower. They also help a little bit with base tax. And as expected, you know, with us being a tribe, we will have a lot of tribesmen actually floating around. And the highest level is citizens. And these really help with your research points and commerce value, as you can see here. And so, you know, as you become more civilized, you're probably going to want a lot more citizens, so you can have a lot more research and things like that. Somebody like Rome is probably going to have a lot more citizens because they're, you know, in theory, a little bit more, you know, as you can see, here's 8 citizens. You know, a big chunk of their populations in their cities are citizens. So they're going to have a much better research rate than we are, and other bonuses that they have from that. So that's kind of a small breakdown, quick breakdown of these. Again, we'll dig into these a little bit more as we dig in, as we continue throughout the game. But that's very, very quick and dirty, you know, the fact that there are multiple populations that we have to manage as we go along. So this gray area here, one of the ways that we can colonize this is by simply just having a nearby city that has, I guess, looks like an adjacent city has at least 10 pops, and then we can send some pops over here to colonize this. So while having this gap, there's maybe some positives and negatives. I mean, maybe a negative is, you know, we are in kind of a less civilized area of the world, but we also have a kind of a buffer here between us and those more civilized, possibly higher, you know, technology rates. So they're going to be a little bit more advanced than us. Civilizations down this way. So a little bit of a cushion there, some opportunity for us to expand without having to go to war and things like that. And also kind of really just take care of our own stuff up here. We could probably expand to a lot of this stuff, maybe even take over all of this stuff before we have to worry about the rest of the world at all. So that's going to be an interesting way that we're going to play and kind of determine what we want to do. What else is going on with our country here? Going to do a lot of setup here before we actually really get into the game and unpause, which is kind of typical. There's a lot to do sometimes when you first get into a Paradox game before you actually unpause for the beginning of the game. So a couple other things are, as you can see here, we have some military ideas that we can pick up, and we have this bonus that we can get based on the military ideas. If we plug in 2 military ideas, we will unlock this bonus, which gives us, you know, some extra of these power points. Maybe, you know, if you're familiar with EU4, monarch points and things like that, these are what we use to spend on decisions and other things that we need to do. So by plugging in these 2 decisions here, these 2 ideas, I should say, we will unlock the ability to just get a free one of those across the board. Currently, we're making a base level of 2 plus extra based on our leader, who our leader is not actually that bad. He's got 10 military, 10 martial, I should say. 6 finesse isn't that great. 5 charisma is pretty bad. Honestly, we'll use a lot of oratory power, so this is definitely our weakness right now. But we also do have 9 zeal. So, I would probably rather the 9 and the 5 get flipped because, martial and charisma are going to be pretty key for a lot of things. But, we'll go with it. We'll play with it, and then eventually we'll have more children, or we'll bring in some other different tribal leaders, and our leader will change it over time, and we'll have different strengths and different weaknesses as we progress through the game. So that is a little bit of that, and effectively how this works is you get the base level, and then you get half rounded down of whatever your leader's points are. So we're only getting 4 points of oratory power right now, which does mean that getting this extra point here is going to be a pretty big deal. I mean, that's a lot of points when you're only getting 4 to begin with. So we will want to plug these in right away. It will cost us oratory power, 50 apiece, to plug these in. So that is a decision that we probably will want to make, but we'll come back to that here in a moment. Anything else off of this? I mean, here's the number of pops that we have total, 30. So, not bad. Number of cities, 13 total, 12 in Semnonia and the 1 in Pharodenia. We are a migratory tribe. That's what I was looking for, migratory tribe, which does give us a little bit of extra population growth. So, not half bad, something to think about. We have 0 aggressive expansion, obviously. That makes perfect sense. We're not currently popular or anything. We haven't really done anything yet. I will go through the rest of these here in a moment. There's a lot of setup before we actually get into this game. But a couple things I do want to point out. First off, one thing about these Paradox games, a way to kind of maybe help you guide your decisions in what path you decide to take. Decisions are usually something that really helps you kind of say, hey, if I do this, this will help me accomplish something. And so that's a good goal. So we really only have 2 decisions here. We have form tribal kingdom. Okay, something to think about, which means we can become a kingdom instead of being a tribe, which will allow us to settle down, but then we'll basically be a monarch at that point. So something we may do eventually, but we're not worried about it right now. The only other decision we have is to unite Suabia, which is basically the rest of this kind of northern Germany area, Germanic area over here. So that might be a goal of ours. And as you can see, that basically means, expanding further out kind of north and west, and maybe ignoring some of the stuff over here on the east for right now, which could also mean that it would be a good idea for us to ally some of these guys. In fact, like if you can see right there, it actually cuts off right here with this green guy here. So we could potentially ally these 3 guys, anybody over here on the eastern side for now, and focus more on the west. And then maybe later on, once we're a little bit stronger, come back after these guys or something like of that nature. Another benefit of going out west, because I did actually look at this a little bit before I started the video, is that if I pull up the terrain map mode here, this is just the simple one, there's the regular one, but here's the simple one that actually gives a little bit more detail, a little bit easier to spot kind of what's going on here. As you can see, this dark green area is all forest, and it's typical to a lot of these types of games. Armies do get a defensive bonus in forest, so it's a little harder to invade in the forest area, which is most of our land. But the land out here to the west, there's a lot of plains area, which typically plains are very generic, no real bonuses either direction. So I think expanding out west for both the decisions as well as just the terrain that we're going to come across is probably a pretty good idea. So that's something that we're going to be looking into as we kind of get into a little bit further. Some other things that might be worth looking at, culture-wise. I mean, we are Subian, which as we expand further out west, looks like there's a lot more of that as well. So the nations that we take over, they're going to be basically our culture for, a lot of these closer ones. So that's going to help a little bit with some of our, stability and unrest and things like that. Religion, all of the religion up here is this tuistic, whatever. And so, again, we're not going to have to worry about religious conversions as we take over some of these people. Here's the provinces. Now, again, not to be confused with our political one, which they look very similar. Again, we currently have almost all of this province except this little bit over here on the west. And so if we go to the province one, you can see that that's what we would want to pick up at some point. And there's some bonuses to picking up more of the cities within your provinces, and we can get into that here in a little bit. I'm going to skip the trade modes for right now. Population, nothing really to tell. We're just very low population, honestly. If we compare that with some of these guys down here, they're very bright green. We're this dark green because we just don't have a lot of population. Diplomacy, obviously we haven't made any diplomatic choices yet. Barbarian Power, these kind of cloudy areas have the chance to spawn barbarians, and so currently we're not bordering any of those. Obviously we can see some up here, some down here. We're not currently bordering any of those areas, so we're not really going to worry about barbarians just yet, I don't think. I don't know if they can go across these gray areas that we have. What am I looking for? This. I don't know if they could just travel across this or anything like that. I honestly just don't know how they work in that regard. But my assumption is that until we get bordered next to them, they probably won't be too much of a an issue for us. So we have some time before we have to worry about any sort of barbarians. Trade routes, we're not going to worry about. Nothing going on yet. Fortifications, I mean, we got one fort. It's our city fort. So there is that. Regions, I mean, obviously you can see we're in Germania. So regions don't really come into play too much in this game. There are some things that we'll get into maybe later that will be a thing, but this early in the game, we don't really need to worry about that. Supply is obviously pretty bad here. That makes sense. Not very civilized here. Here's our opinion. I mean, again, we haven't gotten started the game, so nothing really going here. One thing I did notice as I was flipping through these, we do have some unrest here. Bergia, or however you say that, is even these over here have a tiny bit of unrest, but this one's got quite a bit. 10% unrest does not sound good at all. So that might be one of the earliest things that we do, is to figure out how do we solve this problem right here, so that doesn't come back to bite us in the near future. What else we got going for us? And the only other thing I was going to look at is supply. Where is it at? Not supply. I'm sorry. Trade goods. Where are they at? There we go. Trade goods. So here's the trade goods we have, and trade goods are very important to Imperator Rome. You're going to do a lot of trading, and the trade goods themselves, as you can hover over these, give you specific bonuses. For example, these right here, wood allows you to build trireme units, which not really relevant to us because we're not near the water, but it also gives us each surplus in province gives us more local tax. Surplus in the capital gives us more trireme discipline, and things of that nature. We have a lot of wood currently, so we are actually getting that bonus. So yay, that's good, I guess. We have got horses over here, for example. If we get a surplus of that in our capital, we get some light cavalry discipline and things like that. So it's very important to try and get surpluses in your capital, even if it means trading from one of your other provinces within your territory. Although it's probably a lot of times better to trade from outside, but there is the option to trade within your own territory to get that surplus in your capital and therefore get that extra bonuses that we have. Like currently, we have a surplus of leather, which is actually giving us more light infantry defense, which is pretty awesome. What else we got going on here? I mean, there's a lot of other things. I mean, amber, other things give us different bonuses and things like that. So we'll jump into that a bit more as we go on. Speaking of surpluses, as we can see, here's our capital, and we do have the surplus of wood here, and we have the surplus of leather. We also have all these other trade goods that were coming in, and it might be a good idea for us to kind of focus on targeting those to try and get some surpluses in those areas as well to get some extra bonuses for those. So that might be a pretty cool and fun thing to look into. Speaking of trade, one thing I did look and see as I was watching some of the tutorial videos and some other people playing this game, a very good idea early on in the game is to come up here and lock this for now, at least until maybe you get a little bit further into the game, and just block trading surplus goods. We want the surpluses, or at least the one extra surplus. And so what this means is that if we go back to our capital for a second, nobody's going to come ask us to trade leather. They might come ask us to trade wood because we only need one wood, I think. Or does it give you for each additional one? I guess it gives you for each additional one. Wow, really? Oh no, but the capital bonus I think is only just the discipline down there. So we only need one to get the capital bonus. You do get a little extra tax for each additional one above the one. That's kind of more of a local bonus, but that bonus, like that local tax we're getting for that plus 3% for each one, that's probably going to pale in comparison to what we would get for trading that away. So more often than not, you're going to want to trade out the extras and only hold on to the one surplus in your capital. And so by locking that in up there, the other guys around us will not come and ask us for anything if we only have the one surplus. So that'll help kind of make sure that we feel a little bit more secure about saying yes to trade route offers that people come to us for, without worrying about breaking up our surpluses. What other little bits and bobs we can go up here? So we've already looked at the nation overview. We do have these two provinces, which does mean we have two different governors. Actually, wow, we're actually currently... Okay, I think this is because... And I'm not completely familiar with a lot of the components of this, so bear with me. But I think the reason we are currently the governor of both of these is this is like one of the few places where that region thing comes in. Where did the region thing go? Region. So I think as long as our provinces are within the region of Germania, I think we can keep the same governor for all those provinces. I think that's how that works. So we'll see if we get some more provinces later on, especially if we come over here to this completely different region. We'll see if that is exactly how that plays out. What else? We got government. Within the government, similar to CK2 or EU4 or anything like that, you do have different people that have jobs within that government that kind of help give you certain bonuses based on their skill levels. There's 2 jobs for each of the kind of the points types up here, if you will. So there's 2 of the oratory ones, 2 of the martial ones, 2 of the kind of the religious ones and things like that. So, and each one of those gives you bonus points. And, you might want to change these out for different people based on their skill level. So zeal would be really good for our high priest and things like that. So something to look into. Also down here, you can see our clan chiefs. We do have 3 total clan chiefs, one of them being us. And then we have these other 2 guys. This guy's got pretty good martial as well, 9. This guy's got terrible martial. So probably not a very good general. The thing is, being a tribal nation, our tribe, what am I trying to say? Our clan chiefs are generals. They are in fact generals of their own armies over here. And so we have Thursmond over here, who is the worst guy. He actually has the larger army currently. These are his troops. He pays for them. He recruits them. He supplies them out of his own manpower. We don't have to do anything with them at all. They're his, which is a bonus of tribes, that you do have a lot of upfront early armies that don't really cost you anything. The negative is that the bigger the armies that these guys have, and the more successful they are in war with these, potentially the less loyal they become, or maybe better put, the more loyal their troops become to them, and therefore more likely that you could have a civil war where this guy's, suddenly he's successful. He's got a lot of troops. He thinks he's stronger than you. Maybe he is because of his army size. And he's like, you know what? I can go out on my own. I can do this on my own. Let me declare a civil war and go after you. So that is definitely, loyalty of our generals is definitely something we're going to have to, keep in mind. Maybe more so important for a tribe than even, someone like Rome, because, they do actually have their own troops. With Rome, you have some opportunities to remove some of that general's troops if you feel like they're getting a little bit too strong, whereas for the tribal guys you really can't do that very much. What else we got going on here? We've got a lot of talking to do before we even start the game, so hopefully you bear with me as we kind of jump into this. It's a brand new game, so it's kind of learning all the new things and stuff like that, so please bear with me. There may not be very much gameplay in this first episode, so if you've already come this far and you've decided to zone out, I understand. But as for military is, we get these little military traditions, and typically we're not going to talk about this too much just yet because we're not quite there. We need quite a bit of military tradition to be able to jump in here, but this does show some of the stuff that we can get, some of the bonuses we can get as we progress through the game. And one of the things about these tribal, specifically our tribal nation, is that we're really keen on light infantry and chariots as we progress throughout the game. So that might be interesting to see. I mean, there is an opportunity to pick up some bonuses to heavy infantry over here. But if you didn't notice, I'm going to show you this real quick. The way the military units work, let me go back to the city real quick. The way the military units work is you have to have a certain strategic resource, one of these strategic resources up here, to be able to build units of that type. So as you can see here, wood allows trireme units, which we have wood. Horses allow heavy and light cavalry units, so we have that. Step horses and stuff like that. Heavy infantry, you have to have iron to be able to produce. And if we were to go back to the not trader out, I'm gonna keep forgetting which one of these is which. Where is it? Trade goods. If you come back over here, we're looking for iron, and iron, as you can expect, is gray. Well, I can't really see any. It's kind of hard to see with all these things. Let me come down here where I know there's some iron. There's some iron down here near Rome, and we'll click on that. And if we click on that, it will highlight all the iron that you have around. So you can see there's some iron over here. There's some iron up here in northern Italy. If we come up to our area, there is 0 iron. 0 iron anywhere. The closest iron we have on our side of the map is way over here. Tiny little bit of iron. So it's very, very unlikely that we are going to have any heavy infantry anytime soon. I mean, we could eventually trade for iron, but with it being that far away, I would be surprised if we could trade for it very soon. I honestly don't know how far away you can trade for things and things like that. So we'll see how that works. But I suppose a side effect of us not having iron anywhere near us is that none of our potential enemies will have iron anywhere near them, and so they're not going to have heavy infantry most likely either. So, there's that. So that is one of those things. So, as we dig in through some more of this, granted the heavy infantry is pretty far down here, so we could potentially assume that by the time we got down there, we could have iron, but we may consider one of these other two branches instead based on that alone. Technology, I mean, works similar to some other games that you might have seen in Paradox, where as you progress through different as your technology advances, you get more and more of these decisions that you can pick up. I mean, most of the other games it's kind of more of a tree, whereas here it's more of a here's a list of decisions you can grab, for 100 civic power, and so we'll pick these in a certain order, and this list will get repopulated as these bars fill up from these guys over here. So as you can see, for example, the religious advances are going to go quite a bit faster than most of these other ones, so we'll probably see a lot more religious ones rotate through here a lot quicker. So that being said, our research efficiency is absolutely terrible as a tribal nation, and so we're really not going to get research very quickly at all. That's technology. Religion. One good thing that we have going for us, again, is that all of our people are of the same religion, so we actually have 100% religious unity, so all of our omens are going to be full power, which is really, really good. In fact, they're going to be a little bit even stronger than that because of our high priest currently, so not bad. We'll be able to pick some of these up and take advantage of that pretty nice. Of course, all the other guys around us probably are at full power as well, but it's just something to enjoy. Economy, we're currently making some money. We'll play around with this here in a little bit as well, kind of play around with some of these different in some other games you might see in Paradox, you see more of like sliders here to kind of manage the maintenance and different levels. Here it's just kind of three little toggles, and so there's different bonuses and negatives for each one of those, so makes it pretty easy, I guess. Plus there's opportunity to convert currency here, but it's very expensive and you don't get a lot from it. You might do this in an emergency if we have just a whole lot of money, but most likely we're not going to touch this one, to be perfectly honest. That's economy. Diplomacy, again, we haven't really jumped into very much. We'll check that out here in a moment. Decisions we looked at. Trade overview. Nothing going on just yet other than we're locking that in. We do only have one trade route currently, so we'll pick that up here momentarily. Here's a list of all the characters in the game. So similar to CK2, there are characters out there that you can kind of interact with as needed. I do love the fact that the lazy personality is a little cat here, so that's pretty awesome. But similar again to CK2, you're going to have those kind of personality traits and things of that nature that give different bonuses and negatives. And then of course there's mercenaries. If we have a lot of money and we don't have the manpower, we can always go for mercenaries, and that's pretty typical for some of the other Paradox games. One thing I've seen from some of the other videos I've watched is that manpower comes back very, very slowly. So we will want to be very careful with attrition and things of that nature to make sure we preserve and to make use of our manpower as best as possible. That being said, being tribes, manpower is going to be something that is a little bit easier for us to come by. Of course, again, everybody else around us is also tribes, so they're going to have pretty good manpower. They're also going to have these extra armies running around as well. So just kind of something to consider. Currently, we do have the bad research ratio. As expected, we have an unused trade route in the capital. We do have some inventions we can pick up and some omens we can pick up. Wow, that's a lot of explaining to do to not even make a single turn into this game yet. Before we end this episode, I think we're going to make a few early decisions. And then we're going to go ahead and probably end the episode before we even started the game. But we'll have at least made some decisions after, kind of laying down that foundation of kind of where we're at. So, some early decisions are, like I said before, it might be a really good idea for us to try and ally some of these guys over here to the east of us so that we can target some of the guys to the west. So let's see if any of these guys would like an alliance. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and unlock. Just open up all these. So like this guy over here would like an alliance. Let's see if we can find whoever's the strongest over here. Looks like all of these guys would actually not mind an alliance. They're all pretty equal strength. We'll start with these guys, Lugia, and we're going to go ahead and offer you an alliance. Same religion, +5, so there we go. Boom, we got an alliance already. I actually forget how many alliances can we have. Does it say a limit like other games usually do? I actually don't know. Okay, diplomatic relations. Looks like we can have 4. So, we'll come over here. Why don't we go ahead and try and alliance the rest of these guys over here on the east? Again, I think we're going to focus more west at first. And so I think allying with these guys is going to be a really good thing. I think we'll go ahead and ally those 3 guys. And that might be enough for now. I mean, we could ally some more of these other guys, but honestly, anybody west of this line is fair game at this point. So, that being said, we may want to also figure out who our first target is going to be. Now, it does take 200 oratory power to fabricate a claim. You can get a reduction to get that down a little bit at some point. In fact, I think we may already have that unlocked. to get that down to 180. That being said, if we use our 200 oratory power on making a claim right now, we will not be able to pick up these, you know, quote unquote free power points here. And so I think more critical than getting a war going right this second would be to go ahead and fill in these 2 slots. And then once it builds back up, then go ahead and fabricate a claim. You can declare war without fabricating a claim, but if you do that, like if we go over here, we can't start a war just yet because, you know, we have to wait a month. But if we were to click on this without having a claim, it would show us that we would lose stability and stuff like that. And so probably more often than not, better to have a claim. So come back over here. We'll go ahead and pick these up real quick. So we do want 2 military ideas. We only have 3 currently unlocked. So we have reinforcement speed and army morale recovery. Pretty good, actually. Trireme cost, completely worthless for us. And morale of the armies. I think I already know exactly the 2 that we're going to pick up. This does mean, since we are going to need 2 military ideas to get, you know, this locked in, doesn't mean we're not going to pick up any of these other, you know, awesome ideas, which, you know, maybe we'll have to switch governments at some point so we can pick some of those up. We'll see what happens. But for now, we are going to go ahead and pick up morale of the armies, which is awesome. That's a really, really helpful thing. And the reinforcement speed and army morale recovery. Both of those are really, really solid choices. And it does give us the extra ideas match government point here, which is very critical. So we will get back up to the 200 oratory power to be able to start doing that. That being said, if we come over here to technology, it might be a really good idea for us to go ahead and grab... I mean, there's things like technology speed, but our technology is already really bad. So getting a little bit better technology speed on something that's really bad is probably not super critical. But I think getting this 10% reduction to fabricate claim cost will be very useful for us because we're probably going to do quite a few early wars here. So I am going to go ahead and spend 100 civic power to pick this up right here. There are a few other things you can spend civic power for, and I didn't really go into the population things and stuff like that. But one of those being we can move populations around with civic power, and there's a few other things as well. But I think doing it for the technology right now is a really good idea. I do think we also want to go ahead and plug in a religious, there we go, religious idea here. If we didn't have 100% unity, like if we had only like 50%, and so that made these, you know, fairly weak, we might prefer stability over an omen. But being at 100%, I think the omen's going to be really, really solid for us. Picking up discipline would be pretty good, especially if we're about to go to war. Obviously, manpower is always good as well. We are currently basically capped out, though, so I don't know if that's going to help us. Research points, maybe not. National tax, I don't know. The national unrest could be useful because we are, like we said before, currently dealing with some unrest over here and a little bit over here. In fact, we got some over. We've got a lot of little pockets of unrest around, actually. Before I pick that, actually, let's see if we can figure out why you have unrest. So you don't like the current governor policy, which is actually converting really, and it would cost us oratory to change this. This is an absolutely terrible policy for this because we don't have any pops to convert over to this culture. So yeah, that's really, really bad. What else has we got going on? Unhappy pops, just unhappy. So this guy right here is a citizen, and he's unhappy with the fact that, my guess is, he's in an uncivilized area. So it's probably my guess here. Does it tell us anything else about why he's unhappy? Oh, he's not Subian culture. Oh. Never mind. This is actually a good choice for us for right now. I assumed he was that culture. I mean, I know all this area is basically that, but not all of our people are that. Okay, well, never mind. We'll leave that alone for now. Well, I think that is that for all of that. We'll go ahead and pick up an omen, I think. I think this is going to be good. The national unrest is kind of jumping out at me, but I think we'll be able to deal with one province being a little bit angry, especially if he converts over to our culture, then we'll be fine. So maybe get some population growth for now. Maybe once we actually start getting into some war, we'll probably pick up one of these. But I think for right now, why not? Let's pick up some extra population growth. I think this is going to be useful. Help our stuff grow a little bit more. We're going to need more pops. Pops are definitely going to be very key to our overall stuff. I do actually think we might go ahead and pick up another invention. I don't know that we're going to need civic power for anything else right away. Actually, wait a minute. Trade routes. What is trade routes? I would like to do a trade route quick. What would we like to bring in? I mean, I wouldn't mind bringing in something that's going to give us some capital surplus. You know, like grain would be good because that would give us some more growth there as well. Furs, any of these would be good. So, what could we pick up? And this takes, what does this take? It does cost civic power, so I'm glad we didn't spend it on all the technology. Okay, so, woad. Salt. Do we have grain? Grain's not, unfortunately, an option right now. There is fish and livestock. Is there a way to slide these out? There is currently not. So, horses could be useful if we want to start building up some horse troops, but we don't have that as an option. Furs. What does furs give us? Is that an option? Yes, it is. It does give us more starting experience. It's not bad. I don't know if it's critical, but it's definitely a good thing to pick up at some point. Livestock. Livestock. Where is livestock? It's probably right in front of my face. Oh, it's right over here. This would give us more or less freeman promotion costs, which, I don't know if we're going to be doing a lot of promotions right away. Vegetables. Vegetables. We cannot currently do that. If we could, that would give us less cost to move slaves around, which, you know, there's some benefits of that. Amber. What does amber give us? We can do amber. It does give us more popularity for our ruler. That actually does kind of sound a bit nice. And then there's earthenware, which actually by itself gives us research points. If we got this moved over, it would give us more freeman output, you know, more stuff there. I actually think the amber might be useful because currently our ruler is not popular at all. So, and it does lower primary culture happiness. So that's obviously a really bad thing. We want our ruler to be popular. So let's do that. Let's bring in some amber and get the surplus for that. I guess we're going to bring it over here from Ferodenia. Sounds like a plan. And Semnonia gains the following benefits: local tax plus 5%, and we do get the extra ruler popularity gain. So getting that surplus there is going to give us a couple extra new bonuses, which I think is very, very awesome. And the only other thing up here is bad research ratio, which is really not much we can do about right now. So that is all that. 36 minutes into the episode, and we have not even unpaused the game once. So I apologize if that is too boring for you. But again, for me at least, there's a lot of new stuff in this game, and I wanted to be able to go over it, cover all the different options, decisions, and things like that. And I think as soon as we come back next episode, we will for sure be unpausing the game, and very soon be going to war against one of these guys. We'll decide who that is next episode based on probably what resources they have. We might just go after this guy just so we can finish off our current province, if you will. So something to think about. Anyway, I do appreciate you watching. Hopefully you do enjoy this series. Please let me know if you do in the comments below, or what kind of ideas and thoughts you have. If you do like this and want to see more of these, please hit the like button. The like button or liking the first episode of a series is always very helpful. And obviously, if you have not already, please subscribe if you want to see more games like this. I do appreciate it. Again, thank you and goodbye.